We're recording.
Okay, it is August 19th, 2021, and I am Michelle Hirsch here with the Honorable Harry Mitchell. Welcome, Harry.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for talking with us today for this oral history program. And a lot of people know your background, but we're going to ask you some more questions. Of course, you were city councilman in Tempe, mayor of Tempe, United States representative in Congress, and many other
State senator.
And a state senator as well.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's right. And of course, you're right. You know. And so this is a fun opportunity we can start at the beginning, and then we'll get into some other questions as well. So some of these, some people know about you, but you can expand on them a little bit. We'll start with where were you born and when, and also like where were your parents born and when?
July 18th, 1940, at Good Samaritan Hospital in Phoenix. And my brothers and sisters, we were all born there.
And you have how many brothers and sisters?
I have a brother and a sister that are alive, and then I have a sister who have died.
Okay, yeah. And your parents, where were they from?
My dad was born in Mesa.
Okay.
And my mom was born in Iowa. She came out here when she was 3.
Oh, okay. Yeah. And what kind of work did your parents do?
My dad was a railroad engineer, and my mom was just a housewife.
And your grandfather, I know that he was a bit of an influence on you. Did he serve
Absolutely.
in the state?
Yeah, my grandfather, the house, we moved on to Roosevelt in 10th Street roughly, and my grandfather built those houses. They were the first subdivision after World War II.
Oh, interesting.
And that's where we moved then. My first school really was Garfield School in Phoenix, kindergarten and first grade. And then halfway through the first grade, we moved, the house was finished in Tempe, so we moved here. What was the other part?
Well, your grandfather, I know,
yeah.
was an influence on you.
Right, his grandfather, he lived later about a block away from me, and he was in the state legislature. And he would get me out of school, and I would spend the day with him at the legislature. Then he got where he couldn't drive at night, and I would take him to meetings and to political meetings and other kinds of meetings. And that's how I really got interested in politics.
You had a unique opportunity there to have that. And so I will ask you, like, who in your family was most influential on you and why?
Well, I have to say my grandfather, of course, in terms of political life.
Mm-hmm.
But really, both my parents, they were kind of the good cop, bad cop. And I don't think they did it deliberately. It was just the way they were. I remember one time there was a pool hall in downtown Tempe, and I was a sophomore in high school, and it was where Rula Bula was. And it was a pretty seedy place. And we, were on our bicycles. We couldn't drive or anything. We were only 15. And my mom just said, you can't go down there. Don't go down there. My dad said, well, pool is a pretty good game. He says, if you want to play, he says, I want you to take your friends in and leave when they leave and not hang around and meet anybody. And that's not unreasonable. So that's what we did. So my mom got what she wanted, and my dad got what I got to play pool.
Did your family have any special traditions or holidays or ways that you celebrated cultural events that your family was involved in, either in Tempe or just around in your home?
No, it was just very typical Christmas and Thanksgiving. There wasn't anything special, but we always all got together. The whole family did.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about your family after. So you got married and your children and.
Okay. We got married in 1962, and the first place we lived was a house that my grandfather owned. It was on First Street, close to Hardy, and right behind it was half a dirt road then, and right behind us was the Tempe sewage disposal plant. And in those days, of course, all we had was evaporative coolers.
Oh my gosh.
So all that smell came in there. And also the feedlots were around there, and all that came in all the time. I think that's why we only paid $65 a month. It was and actually we lived there until we moved to where we are right now. We've only lived two places when we were married. We were first place for about 5 years, 4 or 5 years, and then where we live now.
Ah, and you have 2 kids?
Yes, Amy and Mark.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah, and you have some grandchildren?
5.
Wow.
Amy has 3. She has a son, Nicholas, a daughter, Nicole, and a daughter, Natalie. And my son has two girls, Allison and Sophia.
How do you think you want your loved ones to think of you, remember you? What would you like them to take away?
I think one that I was very involved with the family. I never missed a game or an event or our kids. And also very generous. I just agreed with, I did everything I could to help them in every way, whatever situation they were in. So I think they'll find that I was probably a very giving father, and that's kind of how I want to be remembered.
Let's back up a little bit to you went to school here. So tell us your elementary and high school and college experience.
It's kind of interesting. I think the reason my folks moved here, first of all, we moved in a house that my grandfather built, and that was a small one. It was only 2 bedroom, 1 bathroom. I don't know how many square feet, but it's pretty small. We owned that, my brother and sister and I, up until just probably a year or 2 ago. On Roosevelt.
Mm-hmm.
And what was the question?
So, what, elementary school, high school?
So, I think part of this is the reason my folks moved here also. We lived on Garfield, first of all, in Phoenix, close to 16th Street. And my dad worked for the railroad. And the roundhouse at that time was just off of 16th Street, so it was easy for him to get to work. And then we moved to Tempe, and I think because my folks, my grandpa built that house, plus I think my folks were really concerned, my mom was, about education. So I had finished half a year of my first kindergarten year at the Garfield School. Then we moved to Tempe in January, and my mom went to Tempe Grammar. That's all there was, Tempe Grammar School. Went to Tempe Grammar and wanted to enroll me, and she asked how many students were there or in a class, and she said, well, that's too many. Is there another school? She said, yes, there's the Payne Training School, which was on the ASU campus, and it was the Ira D. Payne Training School. It was, we had my 8th grade year, I don't even remember who my teacher was because I had a student teacher in the morning and afternoon, both semesters, all different.
Oh.
And we had all these former teachers, because ASU was a teacher's college.
Yes.
They would sit around and observe us in the room. And, but we had great experiences that we had that other kids didn't get. It was good.
Interesting.
And my 2 sisters, my mom wouldn't enroll them there because at Payne Training School, my mother went and asked, because she had just beautiful handwriting, cursive, and came and asked when they were going to teach us that. And they said, oh, we showed them how. If they want to do it, they'll do it. Well, nobody in my class that I can remember ever did cursive. They all just printed everything. And so my mom was all mad at that and took my sister. That's when Mitchell School was built. And then my 2 sisters went to Mitchell School.
So Mitchell School was built when you were in
grade school.
Grade school?
Yeah, I don't remember when.
And was it after your family?
Yeah, my grandfather. We owned that. That was kind of a farm we had.
Okay.
It went from University to about 11th Street, between Roosevelt and what's the other street? McCamey, I think. And we had we had a couple horses and some cows and some pigs and chickens, all those kind of things. And my dad, as a railroader, that was, he said that every railroader has a second job, and that's what it was. And so Mitchell School, it's on that map that Bill gave me. I looked at. Let me see that map, Bill, because it's. I think that map was 52.
Right.
And if
It's
you look
on
where
here.
Mitchell School is, I think it said, I don't know if it's there or if it's gonna be
It's
there.
on here.
I don't know how easy this works for them to see, but I can
Yeah.
pull it for you.
So Mitchell School was, right here.
It's numbered, right?
Yeah, number 28. And so that was, so yeah, it was McCamey and Mitchell Drive. And we owned from University down to about 11th Street. But Mitchell School, my grandfather sold it really cheap. And so that's when they named it after him.
Wow.
Now, say another interesting story about the family.
Yes.
Because the city, when we moved on Roosevelt, they were dirt roads. And Roosevelt was the west city limits. And we had some cows there. Some we milked, they were milked, and as well as some steers that I remember we used to raise one particularly, which I felt kind of bad about because, you know, I fed it myself, and that's the one we ate. So Art Livingston would come down and get him and take it to the locker. Well, as the city was moving out west, and people were complaining about the smell, which I heard all the way through my political career too, the smells in Tempe. And so we sold that property. And my dad moved everything, and it was just kind of a junk pile too, and moved everything down to First Street and Priest on the southeast corner. Now, he pushed all this manure in this feedlot in a pile. And this was about the time people were putting winter yards in. This was in, what, January? No, earlier than that. About January. And so he put an ad in the paper for free manure to come and get it. And no one did. So then he put an ad in the paper, delivered for sale. And he had a screen that he put over the back of his pickup and dumped them. Well, after that, he had so many calls that he started buying manure and putting it at First Street and Priest. And there are a lot of feedlots around here. The last manure he bought was at where Earnhardt was at Rural and Baseline.
Mm-hmm.
That was a feedlot.
Wow.
And then by then all of us kids were out of college, and the manure now was down in Maricopa and moved. So he said, you know, he didn't need to do that anymore. So the name of the manure was M&M, and we said, Daddy, what does M&M stand for? He says, me and Ma. So he
That's a great story.
he was pretty smart. What he did was he put her on Social Security and paid her. You know, that was, so later on she got on Social Security. Otherwise, she was a housewife.
He was clearly very entrepreneurial.
Yeah, he was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so what high school did you
Oh,
go to?
Tempe High.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know that.
Yeah. Tempe High, and you know, it had just built. I think we were the first class that went all 4 years to the new one, and we had some of our events still at the old school. You know, Debbie, they still had that gym going on. I don't know if did you go to the new school?
My first year was at the old school.
At the old school,
Uh,
and the gym they didn't build a gym yet at the new school, and so all the sports were down at the old school, the gym, the locker rooms, and the industrial arts. So kids that were taking shop would go out, and the shop teacher would drive them in a bus down to the old school. And we went to, we had dances in the old gym. And sometimes it's a new place. I don't know if you remember, Debbie, that sometimes we had dances in the cafeteria, as well as even sometimes out of the patio, out of the tennis courts. So,
Were you involved in extracurricular activities or clubs or anything in high school?
well, I was in all clubs, all kinds of clubs. But, you know, I tried football and baseball, but that didn't work. So I didn't really play that. And but I was in, you know, High Y, and which is part of the YMCA organization, and there's 3 or 4 others that I belong to.
And you went on to ASU and you got your bachelor's degree in political science?
Political science in 62.
And were you thinking you wanted to be a teacher?
No.
Or what were you thinking?
Well, that's interesting. After I graduated, I said, what do you do with a degree in political science and liberal arts? And I was driving a school bus my last year at ASU. And I really enjoyed these kids. My wife, we got married just before we graduated. And my wife was teaching.
Oh, okay.
She was teaching in Coronado. It was the second year Coronado High School was open. And so we, get what I was saying, thinking about here.
Well, you were graduating.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
and-
I said, what? And I said, I really enjoy these kids and I really love the subject of political science. I said, I think I might want to teach. So in those days, they didn't have a program for that. So I went to the State Department and found out what was necessary to teach. And I went back and took those courses. And then you couldn't, there was no jobs available in those
really?
days. Phoenix Union, that's where I did my student teaching at Phoenix Union, which was at Van Buren and 7th Street. And that really pushed me over. I really had a great experience at Phoenix Union. And then, so I couldn't get a job. So the first year, so what did I do the first year? Oh, I just drove a bus and went to school.
Mm-hmm.
I worked on my master's, what I did. And then a job opening came at Tempe High. So,
what was that like to walk into a job teaching at a school that you went to?
well, it's interesting because most of the teachers that I had were still there.
Oh, that is interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
You talked about some of your jobs, driving a bus, and but once you were a teacher, did you do other jobs?
Yeah. I worked for a trucking company, a freight company in the summer. And I enjoyed that. You could sweat and got all dirty and everything. And then when school came, you wore a tie and it cleaned up. But I did that. But all the way through high school and up until I probably graduated from ASU, I worked at a bottling plant, soda pop.
Oh, okay.
My grandfather owned it. He sold it, and then I went to work for the people. And I worked there from the age I was 15 till I graduated from college. Many years ago, they had lots of different brands of pop, and each one was a separate franchise.
Oh, okay.
And he had ones that, some of them are still around. Double Cola was the big one, and it's still around in the Midwest. But Double Cola, a Delaware Punch was a great big one. That was a non-carbonated one. He sold the syrup that people could make at home, as well as he bottled it. He had Squirt, he had Hirsch root beer, Nesbitt orange, and he had his own brand too. It was called Big Boy, and that was a 12-ounce bottle of different flavors, lime and grape and root beer. He had Hirsch, but he had a bunch of different flavors.
Interesting. Yeah.
And
So you taught government and
economics.
And
Once in a while, I had to teach a U.S. history class. Depends on what happened to the enrollment in those classes.
mm-hmm.
And one year, I did teach at McClintock because there had been a drop in enrollment at Tempe High. I taught all seniors. There was a drop in enrollment, and there were 2 people that went on sabbatical at McClintock. So even though I had 10 years worth of seniority, I was the one that got moved over to McClintock. People didn't leave Tempe.
Yeah. And what was it that sparked your interest in running for office?
Well, that's interesting. I always thought I wanted to run for office.
You did?
Yeah, I always did. That's one of the things I wanted to do. And so I was teaching, and my good friend, Chuck Malpede, taught across the hall. We both started teaching at Tempe High the same day. And we were very close friends. And he knew I wanted to run sometime. He came to me and he said, Harry, there's a city council race coming up. and I think you ought to run. I said, I don't know, Chuck, it's not the right time. And he says, well, if you don't run now, I'll never help you. So we went down, and City Hall at the time, it was a temporary one, down at Donnell Plaza, because they were building the new City Hall. And we went down and picked up the papers, and I came home to Mary Ann. I said, Mary Ann, I'm going to run for City Council. She says, well, what's that? And I explained it to her. But I had never been to a City Council meeting before either. So that's really what it was. And then it kind of bites you, and you get stuck in it. It was
And
great.
that first race you won?
Yeah.
Excellent,
Right, I
yeah.
did.
And then.
Well, that's because I'd been teaching for, 5-6 years, and plus there was not many polling places around, and so, yeah, Raud Sanders was the one that I guess that got defeated on that year in the election, so I guess that's who I replaced.
Do you have some special accomplishments or stories from serving as a council member? We'll get to mayor, but as a council member or mayor,
Well,
that you recall?
no, it was a pretty friendly group. We all got along really well, and there was no real hassles at all. I served 2 terms, 8 years on the council, and was the vice mayor the last 2 years. And then Bill Opiano, who was the mayor, wasn't running again. So I said, I could do that job. You get a little confidence when you start doing these things. And I said, I could do that job. My first 4 years on the council, Dale Shumway was the mayor. And then it became Bill Opiano and then myself. And I said, yeah, I can do that job. So I ran, and I won that race. And then I got out of that before I got beat. I served 16 years as mayor, and that was a great experience, just
Yeah.
great. And one of the things that people years ago used to ask, what were you proud of? Well, people in Tempe loved Tempe, and they didn't need PR people to boost it or any of that like Scottsdale used to do and so on. They liked it. But there was always, Tempe was also known for its smells. As you crossed the river, they knew you were in Tempe because of the sewer plant. Scottsdale had a sewer plant on the riverbed east of Mill Avenue. But it was in Scottsdale, but everything went down the riverbed, the flow, the smells and stuff. And there were feedlots everywhere. And I think people still stayed here. And in spite of all of that, people in Tempe loved Tempe, and they stayed.
So being a council member and mayor, or go ahead.
So I was going to say is, one of the things I was proud of is the people who stayed here, and eventually we got rid of, we didn't get rid of, the population started moving, and all of the feedlots left. They all ended up down in Maricopa in that area.
So some of those smells went away, at
Yeah,
least.
yeah, they did.
And there's just more to like
Yeah.
about Tempe.
Oh, yeah.
So you've seen a lot of changes with neighborhoods and development. How has the neighborhood that you're living in now changed, or has it?
Well, it really hasn't, because it's so close to the university and the house prices are high. There's a number of students and people who have gentrified that area. Not everyone, but a lot of it. And like I say, one thing I knew as a kid, we had no sewers. We had cesspools. And so the city was moving out. They put sewers in and they paved the street. All of those were accomplishments I remember well, because when they were digging the ditches for the sewer pipe, we used to play over there and all that. They had smudge pots in those days.
Oh,
Those
yeah.
round things that they lit up, and you used to play with those things.
Do you have any favorite memories of your neighborhood or stories from your neighborhood or neighbors?
Well, For one, because Tempe was really an agricultural community. You know, we had Future Farmers of America for years at Tempe High till there was just, this wasn't a farming community anymore. And there were a lot of irrigation ditches. And we played in a lot of irrigation ditches. We all learned how to swim at Tempe Beach. Everybody went down there, but you played in the irrigation ditches, and nobody had fences. There were no leash laws. So the dog I ended up with, he followed me home on my paper route. And we kept him. A funny story about it, he could chase a lot of jackrabbits, so he could chase jackrabbits and catch them. Well, I'd get there real quick so he wouldn't kill them. And so one year, television station was going to have a mutt race, and it was at the old Greyhound Park. And everybody ended up signing up to get this because the prize was the new Schwinn bicycle. And so I knew my dog was going to win because he could catch rabbits anyway. So we went there, and there were so many people there that we were in, about the 50th or 60th heat. And they didn't have the dogs run around the track because, there were little dogs and big dogs, every kind. And so my dad stood behind the boxes, and every time the rabbit would come by, my dad would say, "Sick 'em." And my dog was all excited about that. So, and we didn't run the whole route. Kids stood at the finish line and called their dog across. Because when they get in those boxes, they don't know what the boxes are for. And so they opened the boxes, and my dad said, "Sick 'em." And the dog took off, then he stopped. And he ran across the infield because he'd been watching that rabbit the whole time and finished. He never did win, never crossed the finish line. Never did.
Oh. What role has faith or spirituality played in your life?
It played. We were pretty active when we were young at the Methodist Church there in University. It's like most families those days. My mom took us all the time, but my dad didn't go. A lot of times he was working. But it was influence. It still is, but it wasn't the center of my life.
How have your travels outside of Tempe influenced your view of Tempe?
Oh, great, because when you travel, either when I was mayor or even later, you come back home and you realize that things are pretty good here. People may be complaining, but when you see what they're complaining about, you look at other cities and we're in pretty good shape. And so I think it really made me appreciate Tempe more and the people that lived here.
Do you have Tempe events or businesses that you frequent or that you maybe miss that used to be around that aren't anymore, or ones that you shop or dine or enjoy now?
Well, I always look for locally owned small businesses. I go to Ted's Hot Dogs a lot. And it's a coffee shop off of Baseline that I like to go to because they have good pastries. But the only ones I really try to go to are local ones. And I do miss all the ones that we used to have. I remember, I might get in trouble for saying this, but Walmart wanted to come to town. And they wanted to come to town, this was when I was mayor, and they wanted to go, Keating, before he got in all of his trouble, had a piece of ground on Baseline just west of Kyrene. And he was building a travel trailer, not a trailer park, but it was for people who come and spend the winter and leave. And because of his troubles, that quit. It was just there. So Walmart came in and thought they wanted to put a Walmart there. And I said to him, well, you really ought to go talk to the neighbors first. and see. Now, everybody was trying to get a Walmart. And because they do great business, a lot of tax revenue. And I said, well, you ought to go talk to the neighbors. Then they said, we came back and said, well, we don't think we're going to go there. So then they wanted to go where, what's this, the shopping center at Baseline and the freeway? Tempe Mills.
Mm-hmm.
Tempe Mills. And they wanted to go there. And I said, well, you know, we'd like to have you, but we have a sign ordinance. And you won't be able to put a sign up like you want where all the people on the freeway would want. He said, well, we'll just go to Chandler then. I said, okay. So pretty soon he came back because right across from that Walmart, where it is now, was Costco. And that was a big draw. And then the Autoplex right over there.
Mm-hmm.
So they came back and wanted to know if that was the place they wanted to go. I said, sure. But I just want you to know we changed our art ordinance. Every so many square feet you had to provide money for art in the community. You could either give money or you could build something. Well, we've never done that. I said, well, that's the way it is in Tempe now. I think he couldn't understand why we weren't just doing everything we could to get him in. So pretty soon they came back and said, would it be okay if we put a statue of Bill Walton and his dog? I said, that'd be great. Well, they didn't. They ended up giving the money to the arts community instead.
Oh, okay.
But anyway, I'll never forget that. That was an interesting one.
It is interesting for sure. There have been many contributions you've made as serving on council and as mayor. Is there anything else that you would want to highlight that you haven't told us a story about, contributions or something you're really proud of in serving on council and mayor and as mayor?
You know, one of the things that a lot of people say, geez, I just wish this was Tempe 20 years ago, all that. You really can't stop. You can call it progress, growth. And so I felt that the best thing I could do is just be in a position to guide it. You're not going to stop it. So you just better try to find out what you want. And I think we did that. We had, I think they've all gone to the wayside now, lots of ordinances dealing with landscaping, building, the design review and so on. We had a lot, but I look around now and I think they're all gone.
So
Now,
after,
I really like that because it really made Tempe. It was a small town with the big town amenities.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we were close to Phoenix. That used to buy a lot of our clothes in Phoenix at the J.C. Penney's in downtown Phoenix. My doctors, except maybe Dr. Payne, were all my allergists and some other doctors were all in Phoenix. My dentist was in Mesa because that's my mom worked for this dentist when, before she got married, and so we just. In fact, I still go to the same building. It's not the third dentist that's in there now.
you've outlasted all the dentists.
Yeah.
And at a certain point, you were inspired to run for Congress. That's a big jump from
Yeah,
mayor.
it was.
What
Well,
inspired you to do that?
After I left after I left being mayor, I said, well, I think I want to run for state superintendent of public instruction. I was a teacher, and I had I was the president of the League of Arizona Cities and Towns, so I knew all these mayors and places around. So that's what. I lost in the primary. One is because I didn't understand partisan politics, and the one that beat me was much more.
Partisan.
Yeah, I understood that more. So then I didn't do that. Then I said, well, I got talked into running for the state senate. I said, yeah, why not? I've got what else am I going to do? So I won that after I was there 8 years. And then the congressional seat came up, and people were telling me, it was J.D. Hayworth, that, you got to run, you can win. I said, well, if I don't, I'm right back where I started from. What difference does it make? So I ran and I won that. Then I really said I went in on a wave and I left on a wave because I only served 2 terms there.
What did you like? Campaigning is one part,
Yeah.
and then serving is another part. So, was there anything about campaigning that you enjoyed, or any stories or reflections on campaigning?
Well, all in the early years, what I enjoyed was going door to door, because it was still small, and it was also going to meet and greets. I enjoyed that a lot, and so
Having the chance to talk to
Yeah.
voters and
Yeah.
residents, and
I enjoyed that a lot.
what was it like?
I don't like raising money.
Oh, yeah.
Uh,
What was it like going to Washington and representing Arizona?
I used to tell people, one of the great things going there is that I went to work every day in the museum. And it's exactly what it was. It was just,
Your perspective,
you kind of pinch yourself. I'm sure everybody who ever taught government wanted to, the ultimate goal was, I'd love to go to Congress. Well, it was good. But it was a lot different from
State Senate.
state legislature, Senate, and of course mayor. Being mayor, you're one of 7. In the state senate, you're one of 30 in the Senate, and in the legislature, you're one of 350. There were more people on a committee I was on than there was in the whole legislature when I was there. So that's a lot different.
Did you work on anything in Congress that was particularly important to you?
Very. It was called the 21st Century Bill of Rights for veterans. Now they've updated it again. The original Bill of Rights was sponsored and pushed by Ernest McFarland when he was the majority leader in the Senate. And then I was lucky to be, I'll tell you how it works back there. As a freshman, you don't have any real pull or say or anything. But the speaker, people who have control of these things, like the speaker or the majority or minority leader, they're the ones that put the committees together.
Mm-hmm.
And the speaker wanted to make sure I got some feather in my hat when I came back. And so she appointed me, went to ask. The bill had already been introduced. There was a senator, and I'm trying to think of who it was, and a House member. Well, she went to the House member and said, would you mind allowing Harry to be the main sponsor? Because he was in a district that he would never lose. It was always going to be his. And mine was, it was very...
A little closer.
Yeah. And so I became the lead sponsor. Myself, Webb, he was the senator from Virginia, the Webb-Mitchell bill. And but since then they've made it even better. But I've had a lot of people who have came to me and said how much better it was because I had a staff person who married a guy who went into the Air Force as an enlisted man. And he was in Special Forces for the Air Force. Well, in the meantime, I keep contact with these people. In the meantime, he ends up getting 2 master's degrees through the Air Force. But he didn't want to be an officer. He liked what he was doing.
Mm-hmm.
Well, in the new bill, I think it was part of the bill I had, if you don't use it, you can pass it on to your sibling, your children. So they have a daughter, and he says, our daughter's education will be fully paid for by the GI Bill because my husband didn't use it. He used the Air Force. He was in the Air Force, and they sent him.
Mm-hmm.
So there are perks like that really helped enlisted men and veterans.
And those are the kind of things that go into the work you do that not everybody always realizes.
No.
They know that you're representing Arizona, or they know that you're going to work, at the federal legislature, but they don't always know those kinds of impacts that you make.
Yeah.
And do you ever go back to like Tempe High, for example, and speak to students? And
I haven't spoken to any students, but I go back there every so often. I'm on the Tempe Buffalo
Alumni?
Foundation. So I go back there for that,
Mhm.
yeah. And that's a good group.
And I know you probably can't go anywhere in public without people stopping you and saying, I went to school with you,
Oh,
or
yeah.
I,
Or my
or
son
I
or
was a
daughter went
student.
in your class, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and that's fun, that's the beauty of staying in Tempe.
Mhm.
And I had a terrific career. I wouldn't have changed anything. Teaching, I had a great career in teaching. And the political part was all good. Everything. I have no complaints at all.
So what keeps you busy these days? What is inspiring you or keeping you busy or out of trouble?
I'm wasting time. And somebody said, "Well, if you're wasting time and enjoy it, it's not wasting."
Yeah.
So I'm on a board, and I've been on it quite a while. It's a day program for Alzheimer's, and it's in Mesa, where Mary Ann was for 2 years, and I'm on that board. And I was on the EVIT board, East Valley Institute of Technology,
Mhm.
and I just didn't have the time because they do such a terrific job. I loved it, but I didn't run again this time. So that was kind of interesting. I've been on a school board, city council, mayor, state senator, and then congressman. So I've covered all the bases.
Yeah.
It wasn't a regular school board, I might add. We didn't have the troubles that you would have had on Kyrie. Textbooks were no problem. Discipline was no real problem.
Was
Kids
that
wanted to be
the
there.
Tempe Union School Board?
Pardon?
Was that the Tempe?
No. EVIT
Oh.
is a
Oh, EVIT School Board.
conglomeration. Yeah.
Yeah, EVIT.
Yeah.
There should be some award for that. You know how when you get an Emmy and an Oscar and a Tony, they call it an EGOT? There
Yeah.
should be something when you've been on a school board and
Well,
and
again,
local.
they weren't difficult like you had. There was nothing like the school boards have today.
But it's still, you're making important
Oh, yeah.
decisions
Oh,
for
absolutely.
students' education, and that's a
I'm very proud of that. yeah.
fantastic school. EVIT
Yeah.
gives kids so many
Oh, it's terrific.
occupational opportunities and training.
Yeah.
And talk a little bit more about, I know it's called Oakwood Creative Care, but you didn't mention it, and so let's talk about.
Oakwood is a day program,
Mhm.
and after a while, the caregivers need to have some time to shop, go to the doctor, or whatever it is. And this place just really engages all the people that are there with Alzheimer's. Engages them in all kinds of activities, art, music. It's a great place. You go over there, you'll find that everybody is really enjoying themselves.
Yeah,
It's
it's a wonderful.
it's a difficult thing because it's a nonprofit and trying to raise money for it all the time.
Mhm.
There's a
Part of
couple
that
people
is
we raise.
awareness. People know it's there.
A couple people, even from Tempe, who give money to EVIT for scholarships because some people can't afford it.
Mhm.
The VA, there's a number of VA residents over there. They don't, not residents, they call them members.
Mhm.
It's a club, and you're not a patient, you're a member.
Mhm.
And
And they have some fundraising activities.
Yeah.
I think they have.
we have one coming up, a big one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and so that's ways that people can support the great
Oh,
work
right.
that they do.
Right.
And just you talking about it helps create awareness.
Oh, I would always talk about it because
Mhm.
it's a great place.
Yeah, it's great for the caregivers to have.
Oh, you mean Oakwood? Yeah.
Yeah.
I was going back to EVIT. Yeah, I talk about it all the time, every
Mhm.
chance I get. And I refer people to it. Because our people just don't know what to do after a while. And then, when I say she graduated, she progressed to a residential facility.
Mhm.
And because she couldn't be there anymore because, she would maybe not participate like they should.
And you mean Mary Ann,
Yeah.
your wife? Yeah. So she went there for a while, but
Yeah,
then
she went 2 years, and then
Mhm.
she was 4 or 5 years at the residential facility.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And your son also went into politics. I imagine he was inspired by you.
I used to take him to everything that I went to. I don't know, and he said I did that to get out of things because I would go talk to someone and Mark would be with me and he's frustrated. I said, "Oh, I got to take Mark home." But I took him to every event, and so I did my daughter too. And everything that we had, with their national conventions or conferences, I took them also, because there were also other kids there whose parents were involved in politics.
So like your grandfather was influential on you,
Yeah.
you were able to be influential on your
Right.
kids.
Right.
That's fantastic. Do you think any of your grandchildren have any political aspirations?
I don't think so.
It's hard to.
I don't think so. My youngest grandchild is a daughter who is 17, and the oldest is 23, between Mark and Amy's.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Are there any particularly fond memories or experiences that stand out for you in Tempe that I haven't asked you about or that you wanted to share?
No, I think Debbie will agree also, even Bill, that it was a good time to be raised in Tempe. Like I say, there was, we climbed the butte, we played in irrigation ditches, there were no fences, there were no leash laws of any kind. Everything was open, and it was a good time. Learned how to swim at Tempe Beach. Everybody did.
Oh, wow, yeah.
One time, it wasn't my class, but one time, one of the classes, what they did for graduation was they put goldfish in there, and you could catch a goldfish. And so all these kids will get in the pool and catch a goldfish. That only happened once, I think. I remember that though.
But there was no Tempe Town Lake.
Oh no. And closer to the railroad tracks, those were all the hobos. They weren't homeless. They were a bunch of hobos that you catch the freight trains, and the railroad here in Tempe was pretty busy. It could get out at the other end by Gila Bend. Now it can't. So everything that comes in by rail goes out by rail.
Oh.
Because a bridge was blown up, and the railroad said it's not worth us to rebuild it. So that's why there's no Amtrak even here. So.
Is there any advice you would give to not only neighbors and residents, but maybe aspiring city council, local policymakers, educators?
Yeah, just get involved. Get involved wherever you can. I've had people who were working on my staff when I was a senator or a congressman who have gone on to other things. Of course, they probably came to me anyway, wanting to do something like that. But you encourage them. I really believe that politics is an honorable profession. If there's always going to be an election, someone's always going to be elected.
Mm-hmm.
So you got to get involved. And as I said, kind of guide what you want the way you want it, not just let it happen.
Mm-hmm.
Have some input.
Like you said, progress is going to happen,
Yeah.
change is going to happen, but if you can be there
Right.
to help guide it, do you have particularly, and you've alluded to this a little bit, your values? What do you really believe in? What are your values, things that really mean a lot to you?
Friends and neighbors. There's a lady that lives across the street from. We've lived in our house 54 years, and it was the only house we ever owned. And the lady across the street, it was her first home too. And when I was going to a support group at Banner Alzheimer's in Phoenix once a month, I'd take Mary Ann over there, and she'd feed her breakfast and entertain her till I got home. That kind of stuff.
Yeah, friends and neighbors,
Yeah.
really. If we could all connect with our neighbors.
Well, I'll tell you an interesting thing about when we first moved to that house on First Street. It is now a brew pub. It's called The Shop. We lived there for 5 years till we moved to where we do now. And some people came in because they were long lots,
Mm-hmm.
and they put a brewery back there, and that's a tasting room up in front.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's called The Shop. So I was always going to take them some pictures of. We took pictures out in front. We had flowers and Easter and so on. I had all kinds of pictures of the place, and so.
How it used to look.
Yeah.
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 It would be fun to take them some pictures and show them,
Yeah,
what it looked like. is there anything else related to your life, your accomplishments, your family, your work, that you'd like to add that maybe I didn't ask or that you could share?
No, one of the good things is that as a lot of Tempeans, you stay here. You know, people ask me sometimes at Christmas time, well, have you got all your presents sent off? I said, everyone I would ever give a present to lives right here. So I don't have to worry about the mail or anything. They're here. And that's good.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's really been a pleasure and an honor to talk to you.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
I enjoyed this very much.
Thanks so much.
And at this point, we open it up to other people to ask questions, if that's okay with you.
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Sure.
Anyone else?
I'd like to take Harry down memory lane as when we were kids. Is that possible?
Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, you wanna pull up a chair?
I'll switch with you, Bill.
Oops. You wanna, are you
Well,
gonna use props?
We may refer to that, but
All
you don't
right.
need to see me. I don't have my nice shirt on, Harry.
Okay.
Well, Harry, you and I, we went to the same school, grade school, right?
Paid training.
And you've passed over this sort of, you know, and everybody does, without much detail. But what's being lost, in my view, is the fact that Payne Training School's not there anymore, the old high school's not there anymore. All the businesses that were on Mill Avenue, they've been replaced by others, of course. Some of the buildings are still there.
Yeah.
So Tempe was the place you got on your bicycle and you went, right, all over the town.
Yeah.
I used to go out to Priest, or I go out to 48th Street actually on my bicycle, riding, going with my girlfriend, you know, quote, in grade school to go home.
I would ride, we've ridden our bike, or used to, you know where Marcus Denise's Rock is up in the end of South Mountain? We used to ride it that far up there.
Absolutely. And did your family ever go there to picnic?
No.
No. There
Actually, we went on the desert because all my parents' families or friends all went to Mesa High with them.
Okay.
And we would go with them out of the desert and just,
Well, I'll see if I can get a little structure in terms of, you know, what we did as kids.
Yeah.
Because you came here, you were 6 years old.
Right.
And you went to the Payne Training School. Do you remember your kindergarten? Or you didn't go to kindergarten. Do you remember the first and second grade teachers?
yeah, Mrs. James was
Okay.
a first grade teacher.
Of course. Okay.
And second, I don't remember. My fourth grade teacher and fifth, I really do. Miss Chase
Miss Chase.
was a fourth grade teacher, and Miss Robinson was the fifth grade teacher.
Well, Miss Chase moved to third grade, and Mrs. Bowers came to fourth grade when I was there 2 years. You graduated what year in high school?
58.
58. I graduated 59, so you were 1 year ahead of me. In the Payne Training School, there was a shop class for everybody.
Oh, yeah.
And who was your shop teacher?
I don't remember the shop teacher's name.
Mr. Weir?
I don't remember that.
Okay. And you also had home ec.
Yeah,
And the home ec, do you remember where that was held?
right, it was in the home ec building at
At
ASU.
ASU.
Yeah.
Right. And the Sun Devil Lounge, or whatever you want to call where you get soft drinks and ice cream, that was at
Oh, the Varsity Inn?
Varsity Inn.
Went there, oh, and it rained, they had buckets everywhere, because the
Yeah.
rain just kept.
Probably.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, I love that place.
Right, but
I spent too much time
at Payne Training School, it was a pretty free school in terms of letting us do what we wanted to do.
Yeah, absolutely.
They taught us everything but how to study. Is that right?
It's right.
That's basically
You
what-
learn that on your own.
Yes, you did that on your own. So Miss Robinson
Yeah.
was your fifth grade teacher. Sixth grade teacher,
I think it's Mr. Peja.
was he your sixth grade teacher? Okay,
Seventh was Davis.
okay.
Eighth grade, I have no idea,
I'm trying to remember who the eighth grade teacher was.
because I had too many student teachers.
Right, including guys like Joe Spichelli.
Yeah.
Okay, so,
It's interesting because you're gonna do Furlong. My brother was in his class when he was student teaching.
they've already interviewed Mr.
Oh,
Right, yeah, okay. So, but as a kid, you said you had a Tempe Daily News route.
Yeah.
What was your Tempe Daily News route?
It was downtown and the west side, north of University.
Which was at that time 8th Street.
Yeah.
And the store in the corner was?
Well, it was Lamb's Market, and I'll tell you an interesting story about that. Lamb's Market, and my mom would send us down with a note to what she wanted, and then at the end of the month they would pay. And Lamb's Market was where Oregano's is now. And he moved to Dick's Market, which was on the southwest corner. It's the bigger one. And he had the Green Stamp franchise. And El Rancho Market, when they built the shopping center, they wanted the Green Stamp. And so they bought him out. That's how.
And Dick Lamb and his brother had a store in Mesa, and they came to work at El Rancho Markets.
Oh, did they? I know Dick Lamb did, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Both of them did,
Yeah.
okay. I was thinking more of the Rundle's Market on the
Oh,
west side.
Rundle's. Well, I'll tell you, downtown Tempe had a lot of grocery stores. There was, Rundle's was called Baber, and it was where, well.
It was a Safeway store first.
No, Safeway was, right, it was, the Safeway was right there where PF Chang's is now.
It's where the police department is.
No, they moved,
Okay.
that was the new one.
All right.
On Fifth Street, yeah. There was Eckler's Market, there are
Simpson's.
4 grocery stores, I'm trying to think. Which ones were they?
Simpsons.
Simpsons.
Where were
Yeah.
they, as you
Right-
identify?
right
as you
on
identify
Mill.
them? Okay, where on Mill?
Next to the First National.
Yeah, that was Simpsons.
Yeah.
And Eckler's was the other side of Fifth Street on the east side. And Baber's was on 6th Street in Mill. What was there? What's there now? I think that
A
clothing
bank, I
store.
think.
Huh?
I think a bank was in there, you know?
Yeah, it was. It was Western Savings. But then, right now, it's,
Well, we're talking about 1950s. So that way, it was First National Bank for a while there on the corner.
and they had
And
a
then how
silver
about
dollars.
Livingston's?
They had a silver dollar in the steps of First,
Yes,
First
National.
First National.
Yeah.
And people would chip it out all the time and then go put a new one in.
Livingston's Lockers, you mentioned them,
Yeah.
about butchering your family's,
Yeah.
were they still there? They were on 6th Street by the
Yeah.
railroad?
Yeah.
Okay,
And there was Dale's Welding across the street because my
Okay.
dad had him do a lot of welding for him.
okay, and then garages, there was a garage on 6th Street that was east of Mill. Do you remember those guys?
Oh, it's Spain's.
Spain's. He was on the city council.
Yeah. He was the fire chief.
And Nevitz Richfield?
It was on 6th Street in Mill. That's where we went and got all of the ice we needed for ice cream because he sold it in blocks there, along with fishing tackle and boats.
And guns.
Yeah,
And guns. And there were 2 5 and dime stores.
Sprouse Ritz, which was the new dime store, and Robinson and Son, which was the old dime store. And Robinson and Son is right next to, well, it's where, it's a little park now, but it's right next to the
Upton's,
Upton's was there, yeah.
which was next to the theater.
Theater.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, we used to go to Upton's.
So you go to the movie theater was, what, 15 cents?
I don't remember.
But
I
then
don't
you would go
remember.
to Upton's and get a hamburger and a Coke afterwards.
Always got Cokes there. The Dairy Queen was down there too. It was on 6th Street.
On the alley.
Yeah,
No, that's,
that was in my paper route, so I
okay,
knew
so
that.
that's what I'm asking. Yeah, that's what I'm asking. Very few people know that Dairy Queen was there, or
Yeah.
remember it. Another thing that they had in those years were milk drive-through, or milk, where you could dairy.
Yeah, I don't remember that though.
Okay, those are the kinds of, you could drive through and.
Dick
get a-
McQueen was, who lived next door to us on Roosevelt, he was milkman for Borden.
And he would deliver the milk into the house.
I don't know, I assume it was, I don't know.
At
Because
our
we
house,
had our own cows then, and we had our own pasteurizer.
the milkman would deliver into the refrigerator.
Yeah.
In those days. Okay, so you get on your bike and you would go to school. You probably rode your bike to school.
Yeah.
And did your dog ever follow you to school?
Yeah. And he jumped through the window, and I'd be told to take him home. And also swimming, he was a black lab. And so we went swimming down at Tempe Beach. He would follow us, and then he'd go through the locker room and jump in the kiddie pool.
Right.
Oh, the parents would get all upset. They'd pull their kids out, and over the intercom they'd say the Mitchells to come and get their dog and take him home. And we did. Also, when we rode our bicycles, you just parked them out and left them on the sidewalk in front of the stores. And they always knew where we were because the dog was there.
Dog and a bike.
Yeah.
Now, the other people have mentioned the Tempe Beach, but they used to drain, they did not have a filtering system.
Yeah.
So they drained that pool, what, twice a week?
I don't know if it was twice or not. I don't know.
Yeah.
One day of the week it was ice cold. The next day it was bath water.
Yeah. And they would drain it and hose it and scrub it down. You never worked at the beach?
No.
Okay. But I think that we'll get more people in that have, like Joe Sprichelli and others, Alex Arredondo and those people.
Did you play, what kind of games did you play at Tempe Beach?
Oh, we play Dibble Dabble.
Dibble
Of course,
Dabble.
I've taught all my kids how to play Dibble Dabble. Describe the game.
You had a popsicle stick and you broke it in half to about like that. Down to the deep end, you'd go down and put it and come back up real quick, and everybody would stand there and try to find out, get it. When they got it, they yelled Dibble Dabble. Then they got to go down and take it.
But you couldn't do that until you could swim across the pool, is that right?
I don't remember
That's
that.
a rule, but you had to swim across the pool.
The other was, which we got in trouble for all the time, was cut the corner tag. We chased around, and before you went around the corner, you had to jump in the pool and get out, and then you continue running. And we got in trouble for that a lot.
They didn't really like you running at all.
No. No.
So one of the things we're on Mill Avenue.
The other thing about Tempe Beach, I don't think people don't know that today. You know, you went down there and you fully dressed with your bathing suit wrapped in a towel. You went into the locker room and you put your clothes in a basket. You checked the basket and they gave you a big pin with a number on it, which was yours, and you stuck it on you, on your swimming suit.
That's how I met Millie.
Really?
She was taking my clothes. I always, so the Tempe Beach was a big social gathering place for everybody.
It was.
Did you ever go to the roller rink?
Yeah.
And how often would you do that?
Oh, whenever it was open. It wasn't open all the time.
And
Because they had a bowling alley in there too, if you remember that.
And describe where it was.
It was in the parking, well, it's right next to where the ball diamond is now, at Tempe Beach.
West of Tempe Beach.
Yeah. Yeah, so it was, I remember I joined the club. They had a thing, I can find it somewhere. I know, because my dad always said, if we had it, we've got it. So I've got it somewhere.
Right.
And it was the Bottom Busters and Schmooze. Remember that cartoon with Schmooze? They were the bodiless, I mean, just
Yes.
like a light bulb.
Yeah.
And they were,
They were white. Like a
yeah.
bottle.
And so that's what they had. One is called the Bottom Busters, and it was Tempe roller rink. Then they moved on rural. It was an outdoor rink then,
Right.
next to the UDI, University Drive-In.
Right. It had been there before, and then it moved back.
Oh.
Okay, I think it was an outdoor rink.
Yeah.
So these are the kinds of things, I think, Harry, that people like us that did as kids, because the parents probably don't, they didn't think anything about these things. It was just activities to keep us out of their hair.
Yeah.
Did you ever chase the mosquito?
Oh, yeah. It's a wonder we're not all dead. The damn truck would go down there, a pickup with DDT, blowing out there, and we'd all follow it on our bicycles.
Breathing that stuff in.
Yeah. Also, the Iceman, we used to do that too. Or the guys, Roosevelt was a dirt road, so they sprinkled it all the time. You'd follow the guy on a bicycle too with a lot of things that we did, even in high school, today would be illegal. Not that they were bad then, it's just that you still do
Everybody's so
those things.
litigious, they're afraid of everything.
Yeah,
Okay. So these are our grade school years I'm talking about.
yeah,
You were in the Boy Scout group at
Mhm.
Payne Training School?
yeah.
Did your dad participate as a leader in that at
No,
all?
no.
Do you remember some of the camping trips that you took with that?
Yeah.
group?
Go to Fish Creek we went, and I even went to Camp Geronimo one time.
And that was when the Camp Geronimo was down
It was
by
the old,
Coles Ranch.
yeah, right,
Coles Ranch.
yeah.
Do you remember the trip to Cottonwood Camp below the Four Peaks? What we used to call
No.
Four Peaks?
I don't remember.
Okay, and how about the year that it froze on Blue Point?
No.
Okay.
Blue Point froze?
The camp froze.
Oh, the camp did.
Yeah, the water didn't freeze, but it was cold. So those were the kinds of events that we did as kids, basically without supervision.
Oh, yeah.
Right. Road. Now, your paper route was on Mill Avenue.
Right.
Do you remember the businesses that were there?
Oh, yeah. One, because I went to the Dairy Queen, and the owner, he and his mother were members of the Oddfellow Lodge, which my grandpa was a member of.
Mhm.
So I would get all their mistakes, they'd get them half price. They'd freeze their mistakes. Or when it used to get cold here, believe it or not, when it was really cold, delivering the papers, because the machine always broke down. You know that they had the old linotype with the lead.
Describe that a little bit.
Well, the linotype is all this lead feeding it, and they would type the words out in lead, and the press didn't have rolls of paper; it had sheets. Guys up there go like this, and then we caught them at the end of the folding machine. Yeah,
Did you ever look for?
and it broke down all the time. So
Yes.
it was late when we did our papers, and I'd go to the Dairy Queen, and he'd make hot chocolate for me. He used hot fudge and water, and he always did that for me. So I remember that. And Pete's Fish and Chips was on my route too. That's why I look like this, both Dairy Queen and Pete's. Yeah.
Well, the grocery store, of course, your parents sent you there to get groceries with no money, and you just put it on a chit, and then at the end of the month or at the end of the week, they went and paid.
Yeah.
The same thing with gasoline. Brody, do you remember Brody's gas?
Yeah.
Richfield there at Indian McAllister. Where did you go where did your family go? Where did you trade for gas?
I think it was mainly who was the Richfield? Nevitt. Yeah.
Did you have an account there by chance?
I don't know.
You don't know, that's
No.
okay. Those are the days and things that don't happen anymore.
No.
Right. And those are the things that are lost from people who are living here now because of the development that just aren't there. Burchett, Mrs. Burchett's
Bird lady?
house. Right, the house is still there.
Yeah. ASU owns it now.
Right.
Yeah.
And what was that about?
Oh, our classes, like you say, they're kind of free. We did all kinds of things. We'd go over there, and birds that fell out of the nest, she'd take care of them. She would feed them and show us how to do all that. And
She was the bird lady.
yeah, she was the bird lady.
And she had birds in her yard because she fed them.
Yeah.
And she had all kinds of birds in there. Is that right? Yeah. And those are the kinds of things, institutions that they had. Now, I wanted to ask you a little bit. I don't know much longer you want to go here, but on this map, Price Road is called Frankenberg.
I don't remember that.
Yeah.
I never was out there anyway, so.
Oh, go on, Harry. That was the beer gardens. That's where you took your girlfriend.
No, I never. It was too close to Victory Acres then. You're afraid of Victory Acres.
And the Moore's Farm was out there, which became Shalimar, of course.
Yeah.
Okay, if you look to see this word, can you see where it says Frankenberg?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, I see River Drive.
Well, the Frankenberg is all the way at the end, where Price would be. This here, is this what's this say here? I can't read it, I'm on the back side of it.
Tempe Drive. Yeah, Frankenberg.
Frankenberg.
Road. Yeah.
Do you know anything about the Frankenberg family?
No.
They owned 7 sections of land in Tempe. There was a Frankenberg train stop at McClintock. Okay, so,
Wow.
those, you were on the other side of town. You were
Yeah.
a West Side boy.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were East Side. Okay. But as you graduated from Payne Training School and went on to, were you the first class of 58? Was that the first class?
I think it was the
4-year
one that
class?
went all 4 years there.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's what it
And
was.
then in 1956, the high school burned.
Yeah.
Was that a year or two after it
Yeah.
closed?
Yeah.
And you were still using the gymnasium. Did you use the gymnasium after the fire?
Yeah.
And the baseball field was elevated.
The stands.
The stands were
Yeah.
elevated, looking down.
Yeah.
And that's where they held the track meets. Was at the Tempe High School.
I don't think that there was no track there.
No, the elementary field.
Oh, okay.
Field and track. That's where Payne Training. We used to
Oh,
go over there
okay.
and play. Do you remember? Okay, the policeman at Payne Training School,
Charlie,
or Bill?
Bill. Oh yeah, Bill. I thought there were 2 at one time, but Bill was the oldest one.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you know his family name?
No.
Okay. His daughter Josephine, lived at the corner of First and Roosevelt. Eventually had a 5-acre lot there. But at any rate, so there's a lot of these kinds of names that we haven't really been able and have time to talk about. But that's the kind of thing that I want to kind of extract from those of us that have been here, to kind of memorialize them, because the APS building, you know, remember and Laird Drug, the
Oh, yeah.
buildings are still there.
Yeah.
But they're totally different.
Yeah. You know, one of the things I wanted to do, I'm trying to think of her name, Blanton, what's her first name?
What's their first name?
Shirley.
Shirley Blanton.
Yeah.
Yeah, she used to write these little books about Tempe and other places.
Did she?
Yeah.
Well, we
She
need,
wrote a book, I've got it.
Yeah, I do too. Yeah, it's like the one you have right there.
so she was, and her
No, it
husband.
was a harder battle.
Yeah, right.
Who did that
Ralph.
one?
Furlong.
Yeah,
Furlong,
her
yeah.
husband, her husband was on the fire department
Yeah, he was-
for years. and
Well, he was
became
on
the chief,
he was
right?
on the volunteer to begin with.
Right,
Ralph.
yeah.
Well, I wanted her, she was gonna do it, but she either lost interest or funding or something. I said, you know, there needs to be a book that tells why every park and every school has the name that it has.
That's correct.
So Perry will know, because, you know, there's some, who rules that?
It was Mitchell, right? Well, your Mitchell name is, you know, they can understand
Yeah.
why that is.
But-
And the Ordondos are still here. I can't read it without my glasses.
It says, this is on page of the Tempe book that Mr. Furlong did, page 46, the Tempe legend, Harry Mitchell. And there's a photo of him.
Right. Well, Harry, you've had a big influence on Tempe, really, in terms of your council. And when I was in the Kiwanis Club, of course, and every time you came and spoke, you had Mark with you. Right, he didn't stand a chance, right? He was always there.
Yeah.
Okay, I guess sooner or later we gotta close this off, but remember the Kentucky Fried Chicken Harmons?
Yeah,
Okay,
the big red barn on the Mesa Tempe Highway.
and what was out front?
It was that tiger,
Lion.
lion, yeah, the lion. Oh, that was horrible, that was so cruel. They put this lion out there in a cage, no shade or anything, remember that?
In the heat, yeah.
Yeah.
She
They
was
put
there
that-
for years.
Yeah, and they fed it chicken parts, I think, is what they did. Yeah, that became one of the first Kentucky Fried Chickens everywhere. I did read
That's
the
correct.
history. I think the first one was up in Nevada, Utah.
Harmon, yeah.
But Harmon's,
Yeah. And Harmon's lived on Lemon Street, just in that new development. They lived at about 1101 or something like that. And but that Harmon's was a lion.
Yeah.
And was there, and that was an iconic building for many, many years.
Yeah.
Across the street was Moore's Nursery.
Yep. Yeah.
John Moore,
John,
who
yeah,
had been a mayor
yeah,
in Tempe, and then you had Bill Payne as a doctor,
yeah.
right? And did you know Dr. Irvine?
No, I heard the name.
Okay, but his family is still in Tempe, I believe.
My grandpa had Dr. Poley and I think Dr. Irvine.
And Dr. Irvine was just a little bit west of Mill on 5th Street.
Do you remember when they had the Becerra program here?
Yes.
And brought all the farm laborers over?
Right.
And because Dr. Poley was a Seventh-day Adventist, so Sunday was not his Sabbath, it was Saturday. As a result, his office was open on Sunday.
Right. So you just opened up another can of worms for us here.
And what he did, it was a first come, first serve. So you'd see all these Hispanic families out there having a picnic, waiting to get their turn to see Dr. Poley. And his wife, she was a jewel.
And where was that office?
Oh, that was right there to where
8th
it
Street.
was on University and
8th Street.
Maple.
You're gonna have to keep calling it 8th Street.
8th Street, yeah, 8th Street.
Nowadays, right?
Yeah.
And they also had a hospital there.
Yeah, I had my tonsils out. Well, not there.
The hospital was first on there at 8th Street and Maple, and then in Ash and then they moved it to the Tempe Hospital. That was the
It's
Seventh
called
Day Adventist Hospital.
Tempe Clinic Hospital.
It's still there.
You know, I'll never forget, my grandpa was in there and he was just dying for some fried chicken. So he had us, because they're Seventh Adventists are vegetarian. And so we brought some fried chicken in for him one time. I had my tonsils out there, that was just popsicles and jello, so it didn't
I
matter.
had my tonsils there too.
So these are the kinds of things that I try to extract, because these are the lifestyles that we led
Yeah.
really as kids. And like you say, you know, we're not getting any younger
No.
to do it. And of course, everybody has had a career You know, there's a lot of successful people. Tempe is still pretty much a community.
Yeah.
It really is. There's a sense of community here, and
At one time, the police chief and fire chief were both students of mine. And they still here. They're still here. They were my first. In fact, the fire chief, I had his two boys then. He had twin boys, and they're all still here.
you're talking about Cliff Jones.
Yeah.
Well, okay, I don't. We can go on forever here, Harry. It's fun to talk to you, Harry.
Thank you. I enjoyed it. Do you know how McCamey got there?
No.
ASU wanted the property where Tempe Grammar is. And so.
And that was 8th Street.
No, this is the one on 10th Street.
Oh, the 10th Street School.
Yeah, 10th
Okay.
Street School. And so,
That's when the paint training school burned down,
yeah,
1956.
that's about when, no, this is 52 and they had Mitchell School. Anyway, that's when they changed, maybe because of population too. But Tempe got, no, it was incorporated Tempe. What did Tempe get out of that? Probably nothing. Although ASU kept part of theirs, that's where the president's house was.
Right.
Yeah, because all of that was their farm.
Yes.
ASU had a farm then, an agriculture program. And what was I going to say about the? And so when they built Ritter, Mitchell, and Broadmoor at the same time, and they were going to be K through 6, and then they built McCamey. Oh, that's what they got. The property where McCamey is.
Okay.
That's what Tempe got. Was McCamey property.
Okay.
Yeah, and then the president's house was across the street from that,
To the south
of it.
To
Yeah.
the south.
Yeah.
Right. Before that, it was on the campus.
Oh yeah, Grady Gamage. It's still the building's still there.
Still there.
Yeah,
They
it's
use
an
it for-
archives building.
Right.
Yeah.
So the Pig family.
Pig. Yeah. My Mrs. Pig babysat my mother. They lived in Mesa, and I had Jelly was in my class.
And they had a grocery store
Yeah. Yeah.
on 8th Street.
That was way before my time too.
Of course. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well. thanks,
They
Harry.
did have water troughs for the horses though when I was there. No, I'm kidding.
Well, thank you so much.
Well, thank
We
you.
really
No, this was
appreciate
fun. Yeah,
it. And Bill, thank you.
yeah. Thanks, Bill. That was thinking about all. I can remember those like it was yesterday once you start talking about them.
That's right, and everything that you say sparks another question for me in terms of driving back and forth across a bridge to go, and the restaurants that we ate in,
Yeah.
Cisco's and Riazzi's over at 58th Street or whatever it was in Van Buren.
Yeah.
Before it came over here to Tempe.
Well, that's because the freeway took it out.
Yeah, when you learned to drive, you had to drive across that bridge, right?
Oh yeah.
You know,
Well, there were a lot
lanes.
of at grade crossings too. Yeah.
I'm not signing anything.
Yeah.
All right.
All right, thank
Thank
you
you.
both. Thank you,
Oh, yeah, I appreciate
thank
it.
you.